When you're looking for the perfect diamond, there's a number of factors you need to take into consideration. Everybody has heard of the 4 C's, but there's a lot more to buying the perfect diamond than just the 4 C's. But I'll go through very quickly the 4 C's and a couple of other things that are very important. So if we start off with colour, the colour range starts at D, goes all the way to Z. D, E, F, G, colourless, and then once you get to H, I, near colourless, and as you go down the scale then you see stronger yellow tints. But if I was to put 4 stones in front of you, D, E, F, G, you'd struggle to tell the difference between all of them. So my advice generally is go for an FG, you're getting maximum value for money without paying the premium for a D colour. The next one to look at is clarity. Basically, 99% of the world's diamonds have what are called clarity characteristics or inclusions. The scale starts at flawless, goes all the way to included. Only about 1% of the world's diamonds are flawless. The other 99% have inclusions. My advice generally is go down as far as SI1. So there are inclusions in the stone, but they're not visible to the naked eye. Now you need to be careful because not all SI stones are eye clean. So when you're looking to buy the perfect diamond, make sure you look into the stone, make sure you check it in daylight, and make sure you can't see any visible inclusions.
And what is an inclusion? Like, what are you looking for there?
They're tiny little bits of crystal, and they can be white or they can be black. The most common would be black. So as I said, look very closely into the stone to make sure. And most people, when they look to buy a diamond, you don't want to see an inclusion. The most important of the 4 C's is cut, which is the cut grade. Now a lot of people get confused between cut and shape. Shape of the diamond is round, princess cut, emerald cut. The cut is basically the symmetry, how all the various facets are cut and aligned. And a well-cut diamond will have perfect symmetry. And that's what gives the diamond its fire, its brilliance, its scintillation. And then the final C is carat, which is weight. A carat is 1/5 of a gram. So depending on the size of stone you want. Now, there are what's called magic points. So when you're looking for the perfect diamond, for example, the magic points would be 1/2 a carat, 1 carat, 1.5 carat. So depending on what your price range is, you may get much better value operating at just below the magic points. So for example, a 0.9 carat stone will probably cost 20% less than a 1 carat stone, even though visibly there's very little in the difference. Fluorescence is very important. Fluorescence is the diamond's reaction to ultraviolet light. So if a diamond has fluorescence in it on a sunny day, the stone could go milky or cloudy, or if you're somewhere where there's artificial UV light, like a nightclub or something like that, the stone could go blue. So you want to avoid fluorescence. Once again, it's referred to on all certificates. There's a scale: nil, faint, medium, strong, very strong. Stick to nil or faint and you'll have a beautiful diamond. If you go for medium, strong fluorescence, the price drops significantly, but there's a reason for it. Well, most shops should have an ultraviolet light that they can shine onto the diamond so you can see if it does go blue. But always ask to see the certificate. And on the certificate, the important things to look out for are the cut, the polish and the symmetry, and also what the fluorescence is. But more importantly of all is who certifies the diamond. That is very, very important. There are certification bodies and certification bodies. The top 3 would be the GIA, the HRD and the IGI. Now there's lots of other certification bodies out there, but you have to be very careful because sometimes what it says in the certificate isn't exactly what the stone is. So be very careful, and price does drop a lot when you're using a certification body that isn't recognised. For maximum value for money, my advice is go for a colour FG. On clarity, go down as far as SI1, but make sure that the diamond is eye clean, which means you can't see any visible inclusions. On carat weight, my advice is stick to just below the magic points if you can, because you'll get a lot better value for money. Certification is very important. As I said, stick to the top 3 if you can: GIA, HRD and IGI. And fluorescence, always stick to nil or faint and you'll have a beautiful diamond. Okay, well today I've got some styles here that are particularly popular. We've got what's called a halo style, which is, you know, a round center with diamonds surrounding the center stone, and you've got diamonds down the shoulders here. And this ring is what we call perfectly wed fit, which means a wedding band can fit perfectly up against it. So when couples are looking for a diamond, they should make sure that the wedding ring fits perfectly up against the engagement ring, so there's no gaps. That's very important, because an awful lot of ladies come to me and they've bought an engagement ring somewhere else, and they have to have a wedding ring that's handmade. So when you're buying a diamond ring, always look for a wed fit, okay? So another popular style at the moment is split shoulders. So you've got a halo style here again, but you've got a split shoulder pave set mount. And then the solitaire is probably the most popular. So this is a round brilliant with diamond set shoulders. You know, classic design, never go out of fashion. So as I said, that's probably the most popular. This is a radiant cut diamond with split shoulders. So it's kind of like an elongated emerald cut, but it's called a radiant cut. And you've got your split shoulders, beautiful stone as well. So they're just some of the designs that are very popular at the moment. So here we have a loose diamond. You know, this has got an excellent cut, excellent polish, excellent symmetry. You know, and that's what gives the diamond its life. You know, a lot of people think that it's the